The crystalline spires of the Galactic Council's central command station stretched across the void like frozen lightning, each one representing a different species among the 600 civilizations that ruled known space. Ambassador David Reed stood at the viewport of the human transport vessel, watching as their small ship approached the massive structure that served as the heart of galactic governance. "First time seeing the Nexus station?" asked Captain Ann Walker, joining him at the observation deck. David nodded, unable to keep the awe from his voice. "It's bigger than our entire moon. And older than human civilization," Walker added grimly. "They built this 3,000 years ago, back when Earth was still figuring out iron tools." The station grew larger as they approached, revealing details that defied human understanding of engineering. Sections of the structure phased in and out of visible light, operated by species that existed partially in dimensions humans couldn't perceive. Organic growths covered other areas, where plant-based civilizations had contributed their bioarchitectural expertise. The docking bays alone could have housed Earth's entire space fleet. Ambassador Reed to the main chamber, announced the ship's communication system in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "The Council is ready to receive you." David straightened his simple black diplomatic uniform, a stark contrast to the elaborate clothing and modifications he had observed on other species' representatives during their approach. As Earth's first ambassador to the galactic community, he carried the hopes and fears of an entire world. The docking process was seamless, managed by technologies that gently guided their ship into position without any input from the human crew. As the airlock opened, David was greeted by a figure that might have once been humanoid but had been so extensively modified with cybernetic enhancements that only the basic body structure remained recognizable. And Protocol Officer Vex 9, the being announced, its voice a harmonic blend of organic and synthetic tones. "I will escort you to the judgment chamber. Please follow." They moved through corridors that shifted and adapted to accommodate the physical needs of different species. The walls themselves seemed alive, pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that David's briefing materials had described as a form of communication among the energy-based civilizations. Other beings passed them in the corridors, some walking, some floating, others moving in ways that human physics couldn't explain. "The Council has been anticipating this meeting for some time," Vex 9 commented as they traveled. "It is rare for a new species to be granted an audience so quickly after first contact." David chose his words carefully. "Humanity appreciates the Council's willingness to meet with us." Willingness? Vex 9's mechanical features shifted in what might have been confusion. "Ambassador, this is not a welcome meeting. This is a judgment session." The corridor opened into a vast chamber that took David's breath away. The dome stretched impossibly high above them, its transparent walls offering a view of the star field beyond. But it was the assembled representatives that truly captured his attention. Hundreds of different species filled the tiered seating that surrounded the central area. David saw the insectoid Kythera, their chitinous forms gleaming under the chamber's light. The gaseous vortex swirled in contained atmospheric bubbles, their forms shifting between purple and gold. Massive stone beings sat motionless in reinforced seating, while others existed as pure energy patterns within specialized containment fields. At the center of it all sat the Council Prime, a collective consciousness that manifested as a writhing mass of neural networks and quantum processors. Its voice, when it spoke, came through translation matrices that made every word sound like it carried the weight of cosmic authority. "Human representative," the Prime's voice boomed through the chamber. "Approach the judgment circle." David walked to the center of the chamber, a circular platform that seemed to amplify his presence before the assembled multitude. He could feel hundreds of different types of sensory organs focused on him: eyes, thermal sensors, electromagnetic detectors, and methods of perception he couldn't even imagine. "State your designation and purpose," the Prime commanded. "I am Ambassador David Reed, representing the planet Earth and the human species. I come seeking membership in the Galactic Council and peaceful relations with all civilized worlds." A sound erupted from the assembled representatives: clicks, roars, harmonic frequencies, and psychic emanations that the translation system struggled to process. It took David a moment to realize they were laughing. "Membership?" The Prime's voice carried what sounded like disbelief. "Human, you stand accused of the most serious violations of galactic law. Your species has been under observation for 50 standard cycles. and what we have witnessed fills us with alarm. A holographic display materialized above the chamber, showing images of Earth. But these weren't the peaceful scenes David had expected. Instead, the display showed warfare, armies clashing, cities burning, weapons being tested. The images spanned human history from ancient battles to modern conflicts. Violence, constant warfare, destruction of your own environment, the Prime continued. Your species represents everything the Galactic Council was formed to prevent. You are not here for membership, human. You are here for judgment. David felt his heart rate increase, but forced himself to remain calm. This wasn't going according to any of the scenarios they had prepared for. Honored Council, he began, humanity acknowledges that we have a complicated history. But we've come here in peace, seeking to learn from more advanced civilizations. Peace? The word seemed to echo strangely through the chamber's acoustics. Your planet has never known a single day without warfare somewhere on its surface. Your history is written in blood. Your advancement has come through conflict. More images flashed in the hologram. Nuclear weapons, military satellites, space-based defense platforms. David realized with growing horror that the Council had been watching Earth far longer than humanity had known about galactic civilization. The 3,000 years since the galactic peace. Accords were signed, the Prime continued. Not a single member species has engaged in warfare. We have achieved perfect harmony across 600 worlds, and now you appear, bringing with you the specter of the violence we left behind. A new voice joined the chorus, one of the Kithara representatives, its mandibles clicking as it spoke. The human military satellites alone represent more destructive potential than most civilizations develop in their entire history. Their nuclear arsenal could sterilize their own planet several times over, added a Vorthak delegate, its gaseous form swirling with agitated colors. David looked around the chamber, seeing judgment in every alien face and energy pattern. The weight of representing his entire species pressed down on him. The decision of this council is unanimous, the Prime announced. Humanity represents a clear and present danger to galactic stability. Your species will be quarantined to your home system. Any attempt to leave Earth space will be met with immediate military intervention. The finality in those words hit David like a physical blow. Humanity's dream of joining the galactic community was ending before it had truly begun. However, the Prime continued, and David felt a spark of hope. The Council recognizes that not all humans may be beyond redemption. You will be given one opportunity to prove that humanity can change. What kind of opportunity? David asked. You will return to Earth. Your species has 10 standard years to demonstrate that you have abandoned warfare and achieved planetary peace. If at the end of that period you can show that humanity has truly changed, the quarantine will be lifted. David's mind raced. 10 years to convince 7 billion humans to abandon something that had been part of their nature since they climbed down from trees. And if we cannot meet this condition, he asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. The chamber fell silent. Even the constant background hum of alien conversations stopped. Then humanity will be classified as a threat to galactic security, the Prime said quietly. And threats to galactic security are eliminated. The implications of those words hung in the air like a death sentence. David realized that this wasn't just about Earth's future in the galactic community. It was about Earth's future, period. I understand, David said finally. We will not waste this opportunity. As he was escorted from the chamber, David caught glimpses of the alien representatives. Some looked at him with what might have been pity. Others showed only cold calculation. A few seemed almost regretful. But in the energy patterns of the most advanced species, David thought he saw something else entirely, something that looked almost like fear. The thought stayed with him as their ship departed the Nexus station, carrying him back to Earth with news that would change everything. Humanity had 10 years to prove they belonged in the galactic community. They had no idea that the galaxy had no intention of giving them that chance. The emergency session in the United Nations building had been going for 6 hours, and the tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Representatives from every major nation sat around the massive conference table, their faces grim as they processed Ambassador David Reed's report from the Galactic Council. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, said President Maria Santos, her knuckles white as she gripped her pen. We have 10 years to achieve complete planetary peace, or an alliance of 600 alien civilizations will wipe us out. That's the situation, David confirmed, his voice hoarse from hours of explanation. The Galactic Council sees us as a threat to their 3,000-year peace. They've been watching us for 50 years, cataloging every conflict, every weapon, every military advancement. General Patricia Hayes leaned forward, her military bearing rigid with controlled anger. They've been spying on us for half a century, and now they're threatening to commit genocide if we don't completely change human nature in a decade. The timeline is impossible, added Dr. Robert Kim, the UN's chief social scientist. Warfare isn't just part of human politics, it's woven into our evolutionary psychology. We've been fighting each other since we developed tools. Secretary General Liu Wei raised his hand for silence. The question isn't whether it's possible. The question is how we proceed. Dr. Kim, what are our actual chances of achieving global peace in 10 years? Dr. Kim consulted his tablet, but David could see the answer in his expression before he spoke. Statistically, less than 1%. We'd need to resolve conflicts that have been ongoing for generations, eliminate the military-industrial complex of every major power, and somehow convince 7 billion people to abandon competitive nationalism. What about partial compliance? Asked President Santos. If we could reduce global conflicts by 90%, show real progress toward peace? David shook his head. The council was very clear. They want complete cessation of warfare. No standing armies, no weapons programs, no territorial disputes. They see any capacity for violence as evidence that we haven't truly changed. This is insane, General Hayes muttered. They're asking us to become defenseless sheep. Perhaps that's the point, said a new voice from the room's entrance. Everyone turned to see Director Sarah Collins of the Central Intelligence Agency entering with a folder marked with the highest security classifications. Director Collins, Secretary General Liu acknowledged. Please join us. What do you mean by that's the point? Sarah took a seat and opened her folder. I've been analyzing the Galactic Council's demands from a strategic perspective. What they're asking for isn't reform, it's surrender. They want us to disarm completely, eliminate our capacity for self-defense, and trust them to protect us. And that's a problem because? Dr. Kim asked. Because it's exactly what a predator species would demand of its prey, Sarah replied bluntly. Think about it. They've been watching us for 50 years. They know our capabilities, our weaknesses, our technology levels. Now they want us to eliminate our defenses under the guise of joining their peaceful society. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. You're suggesting this is all a setup? President Santos asked quietly. I'm suggesting we consider the possibility that the Galactic Council's 3,000-year peace might not be as voluntary as they claim, Sarah replied. How do you think they convinced 600 different species to give up warfare? What happened to the ones who refused? General Hayes leaned back in her chair. So what are you proposing? That we reject their ultimatum and prepare for war against a galactic alliance? I'm proposing we buy time while we explore other options, Sarah said. We publicly commit to their peace process, make visible efforts to reduce conflicts, but privately we prepare for the possibility that diplomacy won't be enough. David felt a chill. Director Collins, if the Council is monitoring us as closely as they claim, won't they detect any military preparations? Sarah smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Ambassador, you're thinking like a diplomat. Start thinking like a species that's been fighting for survival since we lived in caves. She opened her folder and spread several documents across the table. 3 months ago, we detected anomalous energy signatures in deep space. At the time, we thought they were natural phenomena. After your report, we've reanalyzed the data. The documents showed complex charts and astronomical readings that meant little to most of the assembled politicians. But General Hayes leaned forward with interest. These are weapon discharges, Hayes said slowly. Someone's been conducting military operations in the outer system. Not someone, Sarah corrected. The Galactic Council. They've been testing weapons in our solar system for months, probably years. They're not just monitoring us, they're preparing to attack us. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. How long do we have? Secretary General Liu asked. Unknown, Sarah admitted. But I suspect the 10-year timeline isn't about giving us a chance to change. It's about giving them time to position their forces for maximum effectiveness. President Santos stood and walked to the window, looking out at the New York skyline. So our choices are surrender and hope they keep their word, or fight and almost certainly lose. There might be a third option, David said slowly. All eyes turned to him. During my time on the Nexus station, I observed something interesting. The alien species weren't united. There were factions, disagreements, subtle tensions between different groups. You think we could drive a wedge between them? General Hayes asked. I think, David said carefully, that a civilization that's been at peace for 3,000 years might have forgotten how to deal with a species that's never stopped fighting. Sarah Collins smiled again, and this time it looked genuinely predatory. Ambassador, I think you're finally starting to understand the situation. What do you mean? The Galactic Council made one critical error in their assessment of humanity, Sarah explained. They studied our history, our weapons, our conflicts, but they fundamentally misunderstood what they were looking at. She stood and walked to the world map mounted on the conference room wall. They see our warfare as evidence of primitive aggression. What they don't understand is that our warfare represents something much more sophisticated than they've encountered before. We don't fight because we're primitive. We fight because we've evolved to be the most effective combat species in the galaxy. How can you know that? Dr. Kim asked. Because in 3,000 years of galactic peace, not one of those 600 species has developed the kind of military innovations that humans create in a single decade, Sarah replied. They've been stagnant. We've been evolving. General Hayes was nodding slowly. The peacekeepers have forgotten how to wage war. Exactly, Sarah confirmed. And now they're threatening a species that has never forgotten. Secretary General Liu returned to his seat. Director Collins, what are you proposing? We give them their 10 years, Sarah said. We reduce visible conflicts, make public gestures toward peace, convince them we're complying with their demands. Meanwhile, we prepare for the war they're planning to fight. And how do we do that without them detecting our preparations? David asked. Sarah's smile turned absolutely feral. Ambassador, you're still thinking like a diplomat. The beauty of being a species that's never stopped fighting is that we've gotten very, very good at it, including the parts about deception, misdirection, and fighting enemies who think they understand us. She returned to her seat and pulled out one final document. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Project Prometheus, humanity's real response to the Galactic Council's ultimatum. The document she placed on the table was marked with security classifications that some of the assembled leaders had never seen before. As they read, their expressions shifted from confusion to amazement to something approaching awe. This is impossible, President Santos whispered. No, Sarah corrected. This is what happens when a species that's been fighting for 10,000 years finally finds a worthy opponent. David looked around the table at the faces of humanity's leaders, seeing a transformation taking place. The fear and desperation were being replaced by something else entirely. Determination, calculation, and underneath it all, a predatory excitement that he was beginning to recognize as distinctly human. Director Collins, he said slowly, how long have you been planning for this? Ever since we detected the first alien signal 50 years ago, Sarah replied matter-of-factly. Did you really think humanity would meet its first contact with alien intelligence unprepared? The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Outside the windows, the city continued its normal rhythm, unaware that everything had just changed. When do we begin? Secretary General Liu asked. Sarah checked her watch. Phase 1 started 6 hours ago, when the first reports of the ambassadors' meeting reached our deep space monitoring stations. The galaxy thinks it's given us 10 years to become peaceful. She looked around the table at the assembled representatives of human civilization. They have no idea what 10 years means to a species that thinks in terms of decades and plans in terms of centuries. 5 years into the Galactic Peace Mandate, the ceremony at the former Pentagon had drawn representatives from every major nation on Earth. The building, once the heart of American military power, had been converted into the Global Peace Coordination Center, its war rooms now hosting conflict resolution seminars and its briefing rooms filled with diplomatic training sessions. Ambassador David Reed stood at the podium, addressing the assembled crowd of politicians, journalists, and alien observers who had come to witness humanity's progress toward galactic citizenship. 3 council representatives sat in the front row, their various sensory organs focused intently on the proceedings. Today marks the 5th anniversary of humanity's commitment to the Galactic Peace Accords, David announced, his voice carrying across the silent auditorium. In these 5 years, we have reduced global military spending by 70%, dissolved 4 major army units, and established the International Conflict Resolution Treaty. Polite applause filled the room. The alien observers made notes in devices that defied human understanding of technology. Our progress has exceeded even our own expectations. David continued. Regional conflicts in Southeast Asia have been resolved through mediation. The South American border disputes have been settled peacefully. Military academies worldwide have been converted to universities for peace studies. One of the alien observers, a crystalline being whose body refracted light into prismatic patterns, raised what might have been an appendage. David nodded toward it. Query. Status of space-based defense platforms. The being communicated through its translation device. All orbital weapons platforms have been decommissioned. David replied smoothly. The International Space Station has been expanded for purely scientific research. Our space program now focuses entirely on exploration and peaceful development. This wasn't entirely false. The orbital platforms had indeed been decommissioned and immediately replaced with structures that appeared to be scientific research stations but contained capabilities. The aliens couldn't detect another observer, this one resembling a flowing mass of metallic liquid, pulsed with questions. Status of nuclear arsenals? Reduced by 90%, David answered. The remaining weapons are being gradually dismantled under international supervision. We expect complete nuclear disarmament within the next 3 years. Again, technically true. The nuclear weapons had been reduced by converting them into power sources for technologies the aliens had never imagined. After the ceremony, David retreated to his private office where Director Sarah Collins was waiting with her latest intelligence briefing. How did we do? Sarah asked, not looking up from her tablet. They're convinced, David replied, loosening his tie. The observers seem satisfied with our progress. How are we really doing? Sarah smiled. Better than we dared hope. Project Prometheus is ahead of schedule on all fronts. She activated a holographic display that showed a 3-dimensional map of the solar system, what appeared to be peaceful research stations, mining operations, and exploration vessels filled the display. But Sarah's fingers danced across the controls, revealing their true nature. The Mars colony now houses 2 million people, she reported. Officially, they're terraforming specialists and scientific researchers. Actually, they're our primary military production facility. The asteroid belt mining operations are extracting materials for ship construction. The Jupiter orbital stations are testing weapon systems that would give the aliens nightmares if they knew what we were building. David studied the display with amazement. How have we kept this hidden from their monitoring? Because they're not looking for it, Sarah replied. They've been at peace for 3,000 years. They're monitoring for military aggression, standing armies, weapon stockpiles. They're not looking for a complete restructuring of human civilization into a distributed war machine. She changed the display to show Earth itself. The planet looked peaceful enough, cities thriving, no obvious military installations, civilian traffic moving normally between nations. Every peace studies university is training strategic commanders, Sarah continued. Every conflict resolution center is a military planning facility. Every international cooperation project is a cover for weapons development. What about the population? Surely some of this must be visible to ordinary citizens. Sarah's expression grew more serious. That's been the biggest challenge. We've had to essentially create 2 human civilizations. The surface layer that believes in the peace process and genuinely wants to join galactic society, and the deep layer that understands we're preparing for a war of survival. She pulled up personnel statistics that made David's head spin. Currently, about 60% of the global population is involved in the peace initiative and doesn't know about Prometheus. They're genuine in their efforts, which makes them perfect cover. The other 40% are either directly involved in the war preparations or support them. 40% of humanity is in on this conspiracy? It's not a conspiracy when it's species survival, Sarah corrected. And we've been very careful about recruitment. Scientists, engineers, military personnel, logistics specialists, anyone whose skills are essential for what's coming. We've also identified and recruited individuals based on psychological profiles that suggest they can handle the truth. David walked to his window, looking out at the city below. What happens to the 60% who don't know when this is all revealed? Hopefully they survive to see a free humanity, Sarah replied grimly. But David, you need to understand something. The aliens aren't going to honor their agreement. Our deep space monitoring has detected massive fleet movements in the outer system. They're positioning for invasion. The holographic display shifted to show the edge of the solar system, where sensor readings indicated the presence of massive alien vessels. How long do we have? Based on their current positioning, approximately 18 months, Sarah calculated. They're planning to attack before the 10-year deadline. Probably around year 8 when they can claim we haven't made sufficient progress. David felt a chill. So all this, the peace centers, the disarmament, the diplomatic progress, it's all been meaningless. Not meaningless, Sarah corrected. Essential. It's bought us the time we needed to prepare, and it's convinced them that we're exactly what they expected. A primitive species trying desperately to avoid extinction. She manipulated the display again, showing readouts that looked like science fiction made real. They have no idea what human military innovation looks like when we have unlimited resources and existential motivation. Their ships are designed for maintaining peace among species that haven't fought wars in millennia. Our ships are designed to kill things that are trying to kill us. What about our peaceful space program? Sarah's smile turned predatory. The exploration vessels surveying the outer planets? They're not exploring. They're mapping alien positions and testing stealth technologies. The scientific research stations throughout the system. They're monitoring alien communications and developing countermeasures for their weapons. She brought up another display, showing what appeared to be a routine supply convoy traveling between Earth and Mars. Even our civilian traffic serves multiple purposes. Those cargo ships are testing new propulsion systems and carrying components for military installations. The passenger ships are moving personnel to hidden bases throughout the system. David studied the information, trying to process the scope of what humanity had accomplished in secret. How did we build all this without the aliens detecting it? Because we learned from studying them, Sarah explained. Their monitoring focuses on energy signatures, communication patterns, and behavioral analysis that would detect traditional military buildup. But humans don't do traditional. She highlighted several installations on the display. These look like mining operations to their sensors because they are mining operations. They just happen to be mining materials for ship armor. These look like research stations because they are research stations. They're just researching how to kill aliens more efficiently. And the personnel movement, voluntary colonization programs, scientific expeditions, commercial ventures, all legitimate from the outside, all supporting the war effort on the inside. David shook his head in amazement. You've essentially militarized the entire species while making it look like we're becoming pacifists. We've done something more than that, Sarah replied. We've evolved. The humanity that first met the Galactic Council was impressive but limited. The humanity they're going to face in 18 months is something they've never encountered before. She brought up a final display showing production statistics that boggled the mind. We're not just building weapons and ships, David. We're building an entirely new type of civilization. One that looks peaceful from the outside but is actually the most efficient war machine in galactic history. Because we've had to be, David realized. Exactly. Every other species in the galaxy achieved peace by giving up their ability to fight. Humans. The alert came at 0347 hours, Earth Standard Time, 8 years and 4 months after the Galactic Council's ultimatum. Admiral Lisa Chen stood in the command center of what the public believed was the International Space Coordination Facility, but which was actually the nerve center of humanity's greatest military achievement. Contact confirmed, reported Lieutenant Tom Bradley, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was announcing. Multiple large-scale energy signatures emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Numbers? Admiral Chen asked, walking to the central display that showed the entire solar system in real time. Initial count shows 374 vessels, Bradley replied. Configuration matches Council fleet standards from our intelligence files. They're moving in standard formation toward the inner system. Admiral Chen nodded grimly. So much for their 10-year timeline. Signal all stations, execute Prometheus full revelation. It's time to show them who they're really fighting. Throughout the solar system, the masquerade that had lasted 8 years finally ended. On Mars, the sprawling research colony that housed 2 million civilians began its transformation. Massive underground facilities opened to reveal production lines that had been working continuously for years. Ships that had been disguised as mining equipment shed their camouflage to reveal sleek, angular vessels designed for war. In the asteroid belt, Mining operations revealed themselves as fortress installations, their apparent excavation equipment actually being massive weapon systems capable of accelerating projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. Around Jupiter, the scientific research stations expanded like flowers blooming, revealing their true nature as the largest shipyards in human history. Vessels that had been hidden within the gas giant's massive radiation field emerged in formations that spoke of careful planning and preparation. "Admiral," reported Communications Officer Dana Price, "we're receiving the expected transmission from the Council fleet." "Put it through." The main display shifted to show the bridge of an alien vessel. The being speaking was one David Reed recognized from the Nexus station, a crystalline entity whose light patterns indicated high rank within the Council. Hierarchy. Attention, human vessels. The alien communication came through with perfect translation. "You are in violation of Galactic Peace Accords. Stand down all military vessels and prepare for inspection and pacification." Admiral Chen stepped forward to reply. "This is Admiral Lisa Chen, commanding the Human Defense Forces. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding." The crystalline being's light patterns shifted, probably indicating confusion. "Admiral? Human records indicate no military ranks above colonel in your current social structure." "Human records show a lot of things," Chen replied with a smile that held no warmth, most of them incomplete. "We need to have a conversation about the actual situation here." "There is no conversation. Your species has failed to achieve the peace requirements mandated by the Council. You will submit to pacification or be eliminated." "See, that's where we have a problem," Chen said, gesturing to her tactical officer. Throughout the system, human vessels began moving from their hiding positions, because it turns out we've been very successful at achieving peace. The display around her lit up with contacts as the true scope of humanity's military presence revealed itself. What had appeared to be a lightly defended system suddenly showed thousands of human vessels, weapon platforms, and installations. "The thing is," Chen continued as the aliens' light patterns became more agitated, "we achieved peace by becoming so obviously dangerous that nobody wants to fight us, including you." "Impossible," the alien replied, but its patterns betrayed uncertainty. "Our surveillance showed minimal military capability." "Your surveillance showed exactly what we wanted it to show," Chen corrected. "For 8 years we've been playing a species that's never had to deal with deception on this scale." Lieutenant Bradley spoke up from his station. "Admiral, the alien fleet is slowing. I think they're re-evaluating the situation." "They should be," Chen replied. "Officer Price, open a channel to all Council vessels." "Channel open, Admiral." Chen's voice carried across space to the entire alien invasion fleet. "Council Fleet Commander, this is Admiral Chen. I want to make something very clear. 8 years ago, you made 2 critical errors in judgment about humanity." She gestured to the tactical display, where human vessels were continuing to emerge from concealment throughout the solar system. "First, you assumed that our warfare capabilities represented primitive aggression. You were wrong. Our warfare capabilities represent 10,000 years of evolutionary optimization for survival under hostile conditions." More human ships appeared on the display, their numbers now approaching parity with the alien fleet. "Second, you assumed that asking us to achieve peace meant asking us to become defenseless. You were wrong about that too. We achieved peace by becoming the most effective military force this galaxy has ever seen." The display now showed human vessels outnumbering the alien fleet by 3 to 1, with more appearing every minute. "Your move, Council Fleet. Do you want to continue with your pacification mission against a species that's been preparing for this exact scenario for 8 years? Or do you want to reconsider your approach to diplomacy?" The alien commander's image flickered as communications passed between the Council vessels. Finally, the crystalline being's patterns stabilized into what human intelligence had identified as formal authority mode. "You are bluffing. No species could have hidden military construction on this scale." "You're right," Chen agreed. "No species that you understand could have done this. But you never understood humanity in the first place." She nodded to Lieutenant Bradley, who activated a set of displays that showed the alien commander exactly what humanity had accomplished. Every mining operation in our system for the past 8 years was also a military installation. Every research station was also a weapons development facility. Every civilian transport was also carrying military personnel or equipment. The displays showed the transformation happening throughout the solar system in real time. Every university that we told you was teaching peace studies was actually training strategic commanders. Every conflict resolution center was actually a military planning facility. Every international cooperation project was actually coordinating the largest military buildup in galactic history. The alien commanders' light patterns were now cycling through what appeared to be several different emotional states. You deceived us for 8 years? We survived for 8 years, Chen corrected. There's a difference. When you threatened our species with extinction, we did what humanity has always done. We adapted, we prepared, and we made sure that anyone trying to eliminate us would pay a price that made them reconsider. The Council will not tolerate this deception. The Council will have to tolerate reality, Chen replied bluntly, which is that humanity is now a military power capable of fighting your entire alliance to a standstill. The question is whether you want to test that capability or whether you want to try actual diplomacy. Lieutenant Bradley reported from his station. Admiral, we're detecting energy buildups in some of the Council vessels. They might be preparing to attack. Noted, Chen replied calmly. She looked back at the alien commander. I should probably mention that our analysis of your fleet composition indicates you're designed to fight species that haven't engaged in warfare for thousands of years. Our ships are designed to fight species that are actively trying to kill us. She gestured to the tactical display again. Every human vessel you're looking at was built with one purpose: to destroy enemy ships as efficiently as possible. Our weapons were developed by a species that's never stopped fighting. Our tactics were refined by a species that treats warfare as an art form. The alien commander's pattern shifted rapidly. You are threatening the Council? I'm explaining the situation, Chen replied. If you attack us, we will defend ourselves with everything we have. If you withdraw and agree to actual negotiations, not ultimatums but negotiations between equals, then we can discuss humanity's place in galactic civilization. And if we refuse both options? Chen's expression became absolutely deadly serious. Then you'll discover why every species that's ever tried to eliminate humanity has failed, and why the few that survived that attempt decided to leave us alone. The communication channel fell silent for several minutes. Throughout the solar system, human and alien fleets faced each other in a standoff that would determine the future of both civilizations. Finally, the alien commander's pattern stabilized into what human intelligence recognized as formal diplomatic protocol. The Council fleet will withdraw to a safe distance pending new negotiations. Chen nodded. Wise choice. Ambassador Reed will meet with your diplomatic representatives in 72 hours. This time we'll be negotiating as equals. As the alien fleet began its withdrawal, Lieutenant Bradley looked up from his console. Admiral, are we really prepared to fight the entire Galactic Council? Chen smiled, and for the first time in hours it looked genuinely pleased rather than predatory. Besides, they made one more E. 6 months after the standoff that had nearly led to the first Galactic War in 3 millennia, the Nexus station looked different to Ambassador David Reed as he approached for the second time. The massive crystalline structure was the same, but now human vessels moved freely among the alien ships in the docking bays, their angular designs a stark contrast to the organic curves and energy patterns of galactic architecture. This time, David wasn't traveling alone. Admiral Lisa Chen accompanied him, wearing a formal military uniform that bore insignia the galaxy was still learning to recognize. Behind them came a delegation of human specialists, engineers, scientists, strategic planners, and most importantly, Captain Maria Rodriguez, who commanded the escort vessel that had openly accompanied them to the station. Different reception this time, Chen observed as their ship was guided to a priority docking bay reserved for major diplomatic missions. Everything's different this time, David replied, watching as alien vessels gave their escort ship a respectful clearance distance. The question is whether different means better or just more complicated. Protocol Officer Vex 9 met them at the airlock, but its demeanor had changed completely from David's first visit. Where before it had been coldly efficient, now it showed what appeared to be careful respect. Ambassador Reed, Admiral Chen, Vex 9 said with formal precision. The Council is prepared to receive you. Please follow. As they moved through the station's corridors, David noticed the changes immediately. Other species representatives moved aside to let the human delegation pass. Conversation stopped as they approached. The energy patterns of communication among the advanced species showed patterns that human intelligence had learned to recognize as careful attention. "They're afraid of us," Chen observed quietly. "Not afraid," David corrected, reassessing. "For 3,000 years, they've operated under the assumption that military power was a relic of primitive civilization. We've forced them to reconsider what civilization actually means." The judgment chamber had been reconfigured since David's last visit. Instead of a single defendant's circle, there were now two equal negotiation platforms facing each other. The symbolism was unmistakable. Humanity was no longer being judged. It was being treated as an equal power. Council Prime Nexus occupied one platform, its neural networks pulsing with the controlled patterns that indicated formal diplomatic mode. Around the chamber, representatives of the major galactic powers sat in their specialized seating. But the atmosphere was entirely different from David's first visit. "Honored representatives of humanity," the Prime began, its translation carrying none of the contempt that had colored their first meeting. "The Council welcomes you to these negotiations." David stepped forward to the human platform. "Council Prime, we appreciate this opportunity for meaningful dialogue between our civilizations, or the events of 6 months ago have necessitated a complete reevaluation of the galactic political structure," the Prime continued. "The appearance of a major military power has implications that extend far beyond your species' membership in our alliance." Admiral Chen joined David on the platform. "Council Prime, humanity's position is straightforward. We want to join galactic civilization, but as equals, not as subjects. We're prepared to contribute to galactic peace and prosperity, but we will not surrender our right to self-defense." A ripple of communication passed through the alien representatives. David recognized the pattern as intense discussion in multiple languages simultaneously. "The question before this council," announced the Kithara representative, its mandibles clicking with formal precision, "is how to integrate a species with demonstrated military capabilities into a civilization built on the principle of peaceful cooperation." "With respect," Chen replied, "I think the question is simpler than that. How do you integrate a species that can defend itself into a civilization that hasn't had to defend itself for 3 millennia? The gaseous Vorthak delegate swirled with agitated colors. "Your military capabilities represent a fundamental threat to galactic stability." "Our military capabilities represent a fundamental guarantee of galactic stability," Chen corrected. "For 3,000 years your peace has existed because you had no external threats. What happens when you encounter a threat that can't be negotiated with or reasoned with?" She gestured to the chamber's main display, which showed star charts of the galactic frontier. "Our deep space monitoring has detected energy signatures beyond the rim that don't match any known civilization. Your scouts have reported missing expeditions in the outer reaches. There are things out there that your peaceful civilization isn't equipped to handle." The Prime's neural patterns shifted to what appeared to be increased processing activity. "You are suggesting that humanity's military capabilities serve a defensive purpose for galactic civilization as a whole?" "We're suggesting that humanity's military capabilities serve the same purpose they've always served," David replied. "Protecting those who can't protect themselves. But with a crucial difference," Chen added. "This time we're volunteering for the job." Captain Rodriguez stepped forward from the human delegation. "Council representatives, humanity requests permission to demonstrate our proposal." The Prime's patterns indicated curiosity. "What form would this demonstration take?" 6 months ago, our analysis identified several threats to galactic shipping in the Outer Rim," Rodriguez explained. "Pirates using captured Council technology, automated defense systems from dead civilizations, and energy phenomena that posed navigation hazards." The display changed to show detailed maps of the affected regions. "With the Council's permission, we've been addressing these threats as a gesture of good faith." "You've been conducting military operations in galactic space without authorization?" The Vorthak delegate pulsed with alarm. "We've been providing security services that the galactic community needed but couldn't provide for itself," Rodriguez corrected. "The results speak for themselves." The display showed statistics that caused visible reactions among the alien representatives. Piracy rates in the Outer Rim had dropped to 0. Navigation hazards had been cleared or marked. Missing expedition reports had ceased entirely. "How?" the Prime asked simply. "Because we've been fighting for 10,000 years, Chen replied. "We know how to identify threats, neutralize them efficiently, and establish security in hostile environments. It's what humans do. And you would do this for the entire galaxy? Asked a delegate from one of the energy-based civilizations. We would do this with the entire galaxy, David emphasized. Humanity doesn't want to be the galaxy's military force. We want to be part of a galactic military force that includes representatives from every member civilization. The chamber fell silent as the implications of this proposal sank in. You're proposing to militarize galactic civilization, the Prime observed. We're proposing to give galactic civilization the ability to defend itself, Chen corrected. There's a difference between militarization and military capability. What would this look like in practice? Asked the Kithera representative, Captain. Rodriguez activated a new display showing organizational charts and strategic plans, joint training programs, where human military specialists teach defensive strategies to interested species, combined fleet operations where council vessels operate alongside human warships, technology sharing agreements that improve everyone's defensive capabilities. And in return, the Prime asked. In return, humanity gains full membership in galactic civilization, David replied. Access to council technology, participation in galactic governance, and the opportunity to contribute our unique capabilities to the common good. Your unique capabilities, being warfare, the Vorthak delegate noted with continued agitation. Our unique capabilities, being survival under hostile conditions, Chen corrected firmly. Warfare is just one application of those capabilities. We're also excellent at resource management, crisis response, strategic planning, and adaptation to unexpected challenges. Admiral Chen walked to the center of the platform. Council representatives, let me be absolutely clear about humanity's position. We're not asking you to become warriors. We're asking you to let us be warriors on your behalf. You've built something beautiful here. 3,000 years of peace, cooperation, and advancement. We want to help you protect it. And if we refuse? The Prime asked. David and Chen exchanged a look before David answered. Then we'll remain in our solar system and continue developing our own civilization. But when the real threats arrive, and they will arrive, you'll face them alone. What real threats? The Prime demanded. Chen smiled, but it wasn't the predatory expression she'd worn during the confrontation. This was the smile of a professional offering their expertise. Council Prime, in the 6 months since our standoff, our deep space sensors have identified at least 3 distinct civilizations beyond the galactic rim that show clear signs of expansionist military activity. Your peaceful expansion has been noticed by species that aren't interested in peaceful coexistence. The display showed sensor readings that caused alarm patterns among several alien delegates.